So if you watch my video on the Game Awards 2023, you would know that my most hyped announcement and reveal was, of course, the return of SEGA, and not just something peddling an old IP out for a remaster or something like that. We're talking about brand new games and key SEGA franchises that have been just forgotten about. If you've ever watched my SEGA videos where I address the state of the union and these things, these are the types of things I talk about in these videos, where SEGA just seems to pretend that Sonic the Hedgehog is the only thing they've ever done, and everything else just kind of falls by the wayside when it comes to their retro franchises. But it seems like that's not the case anymore. We've gotten more information after what we learned about from the Game Awards, so I want to talk about that, of course, recap what we saw at the Game Awards. And I guess I can show you guys my reaction to when the SEGA stuff was happening. I'll go ahead and clip that in here because I heard that John will be using me in his video today about SEGA. Side note here, John took down the stream. Go yell at him, so I can't clip it. So suffice to say, I was very excited for this announcement and these announcements because, like I said, this isn't a singular entity in a classic SEGA franchise. We're getting 5 new games from 5 different franchises. We, of course, are getting a new Golden Axe. When was the last time you thought about Golden Axe? Because I know it's been a very long time for somebody like me. Obviously, that franchise has just kind of fallen to the wayside like many of these franchises have. Shinobi was last seen on the 3DS with the new entry, and it was a tough as nails game, but it was still a fun Shinobi experience and something that I feel like fans of SEGA games have fond memories of. Of course, Crazy Taxi's making a return. Like, that's absolutely amazing, and I kind of wonder, like, what's the size? What's the scope of these games going to be? Like, are we going to get more sort of smaller arcade style experiences, or are we going to have some more fleshed out experiences with these games? Because while back in the day, a game like Crazy Taxi could sell like hotcakes on the Dreamcast or the ported version over to the GameCube, does it really still hold that lasting value like it did back then, as far as how far your dollar will go with the game? Of course, we also have Jet Set Radio, which is going to be something that a lot of fans have been asking for a very long time. At least we last saw that on the Xbox as far as a console game is concerned. So it wasn't all that long ago. I don't know. I'm kind of dating myself here because it has been a very long time since we got a new Jet Set Radio. And of course, Streets of Rage. Now, Streets of Rage, of course, had the amazing Streets of Rage 4, a super fun game, a game that I definitely absolutely loved. I still like to go back and play through it from time to time. They added in a ton of additional DLC into that game as well, but it was a really awesome game. But this looks like kind of an evolution of it. In the brief glimpses that we saw of Streets of Rage, it doesn't look like a side-scrolling beat-em-up. It looks more like a 3D beat-em-up. Same thing with Golden Axe. It's not a side-scrolling game. It's obviously more of a 3D style game, but still trying to keep to the original core roots of these franchises. Now, Shinobi's still a 2D game, even though we got Shinobi 3D on the PlayStation 2, but that's fine. You don't want to blow your load and do everything with a big budget or something like that, because you have to sort of gauge where people are putting their vested money into as far as what they want to get the most out of these games. But like I said, that's kind of just the recap about what we learned from the Game Awards. But my buddy Gene Park over at the Washington Post, yes, one of the few gaming journalists that I actually like, he recently did an interview with SEGA, and they uncovered more details about this sort of stuff, including more franchises potentially coming. So this is super exciting stuff, so we're just gonna hop straight into this stuff as well. So Cami Okami13_ is another person I like. We follow each other. See, I follow both of these. I follow people on Twitter. Like, I have to like you. A new interview from Gene Park with SEGA of America CEO Suji Utsumi. Hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, don't sue me. SEGA wants to return to the rebellious energy of the Dreamcast era. New energy. Good. The Dreamcast is the craziest system of all time, in my opinion. It came out with arguably the best launch lineup that we've ever seen from a video game console. There are some amazing titles in that launch lineup, but the impact that the Sega Dreamcast had in the few years that it was on the market, I think is still felt today. Like, when you play a PlayStation 2 game and you play a Dreamcast game, more than likely the Dreamcast game is going to feel a bit more modern or look a bit more modern. Like, they went with this over the top colors and stuff like that, whereas the PS2, the Xbox, and the GameCube were kind of the start of the more drab era. Sega was firing on all cylinders with that system, and it was a rebellious system. They did things like online with those games where you could play stuff like Quake and Unreal Tournament online for free with your Sega Dreamcast. So I definitely loved that era of Sega. It was balls to the walls, it was in your face, and they were doing things that other companies weren't quite doing yet and didn't necessarily do until a whole nother generation had passed. Confirms original creators are involved in the Jet Set Radio reboot, which should be a breath of fresh air for a lot of Jet Set Radio fans, because with them rebooting it, you do want to have original people on the project as far as realizing the scope of the vision and realizing what the vision needs to be. You don't want a bunch of new blood working on the title who don't really have any sort of nostalgia for the game or weren't involved in the original game when it's a game like this, because I definitely feel like Jet Set Radio is probably going to be like the AAA game out of all of these. I could see like Shinobi being a smaller release, maybe even Golden Axe being a bit of a smaller release, but I feel like Jet Set Radio, that's positioning itself to be like a big banger title. Even more revivals are planned, which, music to my freaking ears. I could go over a laundry list of games and franchises that you guys have that you have not used in a long time that I've been preaching about for years. But hey, you know, we're gonna take this victory on Virtua Fighter. We are evaluating right now. Virtua Fighter doesn't use so many tricks like special moves in Street Fighter. It's very realistic. How can we make it more dramatic? It's something we're working on. Now, I find that very interesting because when you look at Virtua Fighter, you're right, there aren't a bunch of special moves, but there's a ton of moves in the game, and it usually uses a 3-button system. There's a block button, and a punch button, and a kick button, and various combinations and various timings will do various moves in these Virtua Fighter games. The thing about Virtua Fighter, though, was really when Virtua Fighter was at its peak, they were always some of the best looking games. Like Virtua Fighter 2 on the Sega Saturn still holds up today. It was a 60 frames per second game. What's one of the best looking 32X games? Virtua Fighter 32X. Virtua Fighter 3 TB on the Dreamcast still holds up to this day in terms of graphics, and they're even re-bringing that game back into Japanese arcades so that people could play it online or something like that. You know, I understand where they're coming at when you look at stuff like Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat. In terms of the bells and whistles and all the additional stuff, like, yeah, maybe you can't necessarily compete with those because those are more so based on unrealism and mysticism and stuff like that. But I still think there is a market for a Virtua Fighter game, especially in the current landscape. Are people potentially getting tired of these other franchises that are just going so over the top in the action and the combat? Like Street Fighter used to be a pretty somewhat realistic series, even though you had Hadokens and crap like that. But now, you know, it's definitely sort of, you know, encompassed a new life of its own. Mortal Kombat is completely off the walls nowadays, and Tekken looks to be going in that same sort of direction. So I think Virtua Fighter has a place in the current marketplace. And finally, they credit Sonic, Yakuza, and Persona for keeping Sega afloat. And I mean, to some degree, I completely agree with that. You know, the Sonic people are diehards. They always buy the Sonic stuff. How do I know this? I am a Sonic person. I have a freaking Sonic iced out chain that I bought for the lulz. Obviously, Yakuza has become one of the premier franchises for Sega, and of course Atlas and Persona, you know, being such an integral part of Sega and sort of going forward in the future. But now that you have kind of that safety net, you have these established franchises that you know are going to do figures, you know they're going to do money. You know, Sonic might not be as big as a Mario game, but it's still going to bring you in revenue. Yakuza, the fever for that is at an all-time high. Same with Persona. Those games are cash cows for you. Now's the time to bring back that rebellious side, though. Now's the time to bring back that sort of interest in Sega and what they're going to be doing. And I think this is the perfect gateway into it. I was so excited when all of this stuff for Sega was announced. And I think 2024, we're finally going to start to see the fruits of the labor, the evolution, potentially a new era, the new energy of Sega. Like, this is something they're heavily promoting. I got an email about it. Like, you want to know about the new energy? It's like, yes, inject it into my veins, people. Like, I've been wanting this for a decade plus. So I'm super excited for this. I think it's going to be potentially a whole new era for Sega, and I hope it works out well. And Sega, if you need any pointers on stuff, you need anything, need some sort of advice, you need to know what kind of franchises need to be brought back, hit me up. Hit me up. Email me. You have my email. We've worked together on numerous sponsored projects before. You know how to get a hold. We just did something with Persona 5 Tactica in an ad for a video. You know how to get a hold of me. Hit me up. Let's talk. I will give you all of my knowledge for free. Well, maybe not for free. I guess I could do it for free as long as you keep paying me nicely for sponsored spots on the channel. But no, seriously, like, I want to help, and in any way that I can, I will. So let me know what you think of this in the comments section down below. Are you excited for the potential return of Sega in 2024? It's a new era, a whole new world, a new fantastic point of view. No one to tell us no or where to go. Yeah, I'm gonna stop it. I don't know. Not really in the singing mood right now. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel and you enjoy a man yelling about Sega and video games, hit the subscribe button, man. It's free. We want to have you here. You can even disagree with me, and I won't get angry because I don't really care. Everyone has an opinion. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.